The Henry M. Jackson School, where I'm located, acknowledges that we're on Coast Salish territory, the traditional homelands of the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, Muckleshoot, and other Indigenous peoples. And we also acknowledge the many peoples who have built the infrastructure of this place, including slaves, immigrants, and migrant workers, and the sacrifices that they've made and are making so that we can enjoy the lives that we have and the work we do. I'd like to turn now to Professor Danny Hoffman. He's the chair of our African Studies program in the Jackson School of International Studies, and welcome you, Danny, to give a welcome on behalf of African Studies, one of our key sponsors for this event.
Great. Thank you so much, Nadine, and welcome everyone. It's such a thrill and an honor to be here with you, and thank you so much to everyone. On behalf of the African Studies program at the University of Washington, I first just want to thank Lassana for being here. I want to thank the Center for Sound Communities, Canadian Studies at the UW, and all of the sponsors that made this possible. I think today's event in many ways really speaks to the heart of the mission of the University of Washington African Studies program. And I think in two really profound ways. One is that in our teaching of African affairs at the UW, we really work very hard to foreground the path-breaking work of African intellectuals and artists. And Lassana, as I'm sure most of you know already, is certainly both of those. And I'm personally thrilled because I've actually used the Sunjata Story in my own teaching to great effect. It's an amazing collaborative project and has always as a highlight of the classes, our African Studies classes, when I've been able to use it. And I also would say this is really fits into an approach that we've taken with African Studies here at the UW, which is that African Studies are by definition global studies. That the African Studies has always been about connections that have extended well beyond the physical African continent. And we've adopted an African Worlds program, which allows us to think really expansively about how African scholarship, arts, humanities, politics is really the study of the globe. And I can't think of any better event to illustrate that than today's event. And so we're thrilled to be a part of it. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Danny. I'd like to now turn to our other co-sponsor of this event, and that is Professor Shannon Dudley, the chair of the University School of Music. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you, Nadine. I'm actually the chair of the ethnomusicology program. I have to thank the director of the School of Music, Joanne Tarakani, for providing some of the funding for this event. Bonjour, Lassana. Very nice to see you. I'm looking forward to hearing you too. This is, I think for me, I haven't seen the film and I don't know so much about the project. So I'm looking forward to learning about it. What I think is important about this is that in ethnomusicology, we have a long history of Western scholars representing music from all over the world. And our real challenge is to move towards real collaboration and to move towards an ethnomusicology in which we give voice to many different artists and many different people and many different cultures. And I think this project, from what I know of it, is a really wonderful step in that direction and an example of what we can be doing. So I really appreciate the opportunity that Marcia has given me to sponsor this and to be a part of it, and appreciate Canadian Studies support for this project. And I hope that our students and our faculty will learn something from this about the kind of work that we can be doing and the kind of ethnomusicology that we can promote moving into the future. Also want to give a shout out to former UW ethnomusicology graduate student John Kurtzer, who is here and who's always been helping us to connect with African artists and African music. Thank you, everybody. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Shannon. So I'm pleased now to introduce you to our chair for today's event, and welcome back to the University of Washington, our former Fulbright Canada Chair in Canadian Studies and dear friend, Marcia Ostaszewski. Professor Ostaszewski was with us, requested me to control my camera. I think I'll decline that. Sorry. Marcia was with us at the UW about 10 years ago when she served in her position as Canada Chair, and during a few short months here, she truly energized Canadian music traditions on this campus and brought us together with the School of Music, and then Chair Professor Patricia Campbell, who I think is with us today. Marcia is now professor at Cape Breton University, where she teaches courses on a variety of topics, including music, dance of Indigenous and immigrant communities, gender and performance, and culture and tourism. Marcia also founded and now directs the Center for Sound Communities at Cape Breton University. This is an arts-led social innovation lab involved in research through artistic spaces. Those include dance, music, theater, digital media. Marcia is an innovative and passionate researcher as well as a community advocate. She is truly an inspiration in all of the work she does. So Marcia, I want to welcome you back to the UW and thank you for bringing us today this unique collaboration between Cape Breton, Canada and Mali, Africa. Marcia, welcome and go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadine, everyone, for those gracious introductions. Hello to my dear friend and colleague, Lassana, and welcome to all of our audience members from around the world. My warmest thanks to Nadine Fabi, Dr. Nadine Fabi, and Richard Watts for their invitation to share with all of you our presentation today, and to Dr. Shannon Dudley in the music department, as well as Danny Hoffman in African Studies for support for today's event, for making it all possible. It hardly seems like 10 years ago since I was at the University of Washington. It's a time I remember fondly for the warmth of Nadine and Shannon and Patricia Campbell in music, for instance, and other colleagues and graduate students with whom I worked and connected with. It was also a time of growth and learning with many different scholars and communities, appreciating what we as Canadians and Americans share and what is different. And Shannon mentioned that, you know, this is an opportunity for him to learn, but I must recall that he in fact invited me and my son Ilya, who Nadine gave a shout out to and who is here today, invited us to join him in his community engaged work. And I must say that was absolutely inspiring. And I think that you will see and feel resonances in what we share with you today. So this kind of close engagement with different perspectives and partners that was supported by the Fulbright Research Chair so many years ago is what I've continued in my work with such esteemed colleagues as Lassana Diabaté in more recent years through the Center for Sound Communities at Cape Breton University. And through continued professional relationships, Fulbright itself has even continued to be directly involved. For instance, Fulbright Canada's Community Leadership Program has generously supported multiple phases of collaboration with Lassana Diabaté and African Nova Scotian communities. And now I'm going to hope that my screen share is going to work smoothly. I'll just begin a bit of a slideshow here. So there we go. I think this will be a little more interesting than just seeing a talking head. In today's session, Lassana and I will share stories of our creative research collaborations ongoing since 2014. Fode Lassana Diabaté lives in Bamako, Mali, from where he teaches music, performs, and leads Trio Dakali. And I'm based in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, where in addition to teaching in the university, I lead teams of faculty, students, and community-based researchers and community partners, all supported by the Center for Sound Communities at Cape Breton University. World music recording and radio producer, formerly of the BBC, Lucy Duran of the University of London SOAS, writes about Lassana that he is, quote, without doubt, one of Africa's most brilliant and creative contemporary musicians. He is the greatest virtuoso on the Mande balafón, one of West Africa's oldest instruments. A participator on several Grammy-nominated albums, Lassana has been compared to some of the world's most celebrated musicians. Kronos Quartet director David Harrington likens Lassana to none other than J.S. Bach, and musician-composer David Coulter compared Lassana's playing to that of Thelonious Monk. Lassana was born in 1971 in a well-known griot family of balafón masters in Guinea and began playing balafón at the age of 5, learning from his father, Sunjata Diabaté, a master balafón player who comes from Kindia or Guinea. I will note to you all that my esteemed colleague Lassana is a francophone. Of course, he speaks multiple languages. In virtual presentations over the past year, like this one, he and I have engaged in rich conversations with participants from around the world. It's been joyful to share in many languages. Our multilingual dialogue may be of particular interest to those who, like Richard, are concerned with the politics of translation. I'd like to acknowledge today the presence of our Cape Breton University colleague, Dr. Ronald Labelle. If he might like to give a wave. He's also a francophone. He has worked now and again with Lassana in presentations and interviews on CBC radio, public libraries, and universities, providing translations where it might help along with our conversations. Thank you, Ronald, for coming today and for your participation. After first hearing briefly from Lassana directly, we will begin this afternoon's session in about 4 parts. I'll share in English an overview of the Foundation's activities and outcomes of the critical creative research presentations, collaborations in which Lassana and I have been involved since 2014, and this will be supported by this slideshow presentation. Then with the help of the Canadian Studies Program Manager, Marion Ferguson, thank you, Marion, we will screen an exquisite 20-minute performance documentary film that was made in 2015 by then doctoral research assistant Eli Lionbloom, who was hired to work as part of our first Canada-Mali collaborative venture in 2014. The performance showcased in this film was given at the Singing Storytellers Symposium in Cape Breton in 2014 and features vocalist Hawa Kase Madi Diabaté and African literature and film scholar, Carleton College faculty member Dr. Sharif Keita. Lassana will also share a new performance today, created specially for today's presentation, and he's joined in his performance by 3 young musicians who play with him regularly in Mali. And finally, we are going to hope to have some time to discuss with you what we've shared today, to answer any questions, and just to engage in conversation. So just briefly, I'm going to come out of the screen share to ask Lassana if he might like to say a few words. I know we were having a little bit of trouble, but I'm wondering if Lassana, you might like to say a few words to say hello. And of course, you're welcome to speak in French if that's more comfortable for you. Oh, I'm not sure he's hearing right now. So we'll come back to Lassana. I'll screen again, just in the interest of time. Our first collaboration, there we go. Our first collaboration involved the creation of a new and innovative performance at the core of the core Mande epic of Sunjata, as you've heard. This was part of a larger Singing Storytellers project that I initiated with yet another artist researcher, a project that included an international symposium hosted in Cape Breton in October 2014, in conjunction with Celtic Colours Music Festival. The symposium was part of a broader public education and outreach project. And I'll just note that John Kurtzer, who was mentioned earlier, was also at that event and hosted some concerts there for us. In addition to academic presentations, the Singing Storytellers Symposium involved film screenings, concerts, and theatrical performances about the lives and musics of bards from around our world. Singing Storytellers was facilitated by several industry and not-for-profit cultural organizations local to Cape Breton and benefited from generous funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. as well as multiple grants through the Nova Scotia Provincial Government's Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage, including African Nova Scotian Affairs. Singing Storytellers used transformative education and community engagement to raise awareness about, develop capacities within, and to celebrate the diverse ethno-cultural groups of Cape Breton, including the many diverse origins of people in Nova Scotia of African descent. African Nova Scotians are one of the groups that have long been overshadowed in scholarship and public memory for Cape Breton Island's more familiar Scottish antecedents. Our Sunjata Story project brought a particular genre of African musics to Cape Breton and brought together people of diverse African ancestries. In addition to Lassana and his colleagues from Mali, some African Nova Scotians in Cape Breton are the descendants of freed slaves. Others' grandparents immigrated around the year 1900 from the West Indies to work in Cape Breton's mines and steel plants. Yet others are new immigrants from parts of the African continent. Some have found a new community home in the Francophone school in Cape Breton's main small city of Sydney. Through participation in Singing Storytellers, we honored Cape Bretoners of African ancestry and shared new musics with wide audiences through public concerts, lecture demonstrations, in-school workshops, and widely showcased films. This project also raised awareness for shared aspects of culture, in this case, epic and storytelling traditions, and assisted in engaging local communities in intercultural learning. Through these activities, we fostered greater understanding among and between diverse local communities on Cape Breton Island. Our Sunjata performance and film creation project is an example of ways in which music research can contribute to the generation and maintenance of healthy communities. It demonstrates that research support can lead to benefits for diverse groups of Canadians, as well as for broader international groups. Our aim in the broader project was to increase the use, accessibility, critical engagement with, viability, and long-term preservation of our research knowledge about bards for both academic and non-academic audiences. We achieved this through two kinds of tangible results. One, a program of practice-based activities that facilitated broad engagement with the music we were studying. And two, digital and object-based outcomes, including films, audio recordings, and other learning resources. We wanted to highlight the stories of Cape Breton's least attended to groups, including African Nova Scotians, although we wouldn't limit Singing Storytellers to address the paucity of interest in African Nova Scotians. Their stories were a vital part of the larger project. For this reason, Cape Breton's UNIA, or United Negro Improvement Association, a long-standing Black community organization, was one of the first local organizations to whom I reached out. Today's presentation material is explored in more detail in a chapter of an academic collection that focuses on the teaching of singing practices in community, and in a forthcoming World of Music academic journal special issue that focuses on our Sunjata Story. However, we sought to accomplish much more than a printed legacy. We strove to create and nurture relationships to achieve the co-creation of knowledge through research collaborations involving scholars, artists, and community stakeholders. One of these collaborations was the creation of the first ever bilingual performance of the Coromandé epic, The Story of Emperor Sunjata, and the curation of a performance documentary film based on that performance. Our Sunjata project explored modes of reinterpreting and engagingly presenting the ancient oral tradition of the griot. Ethnomusicologist Lucy Durand served as my mentor and as a lead researcher in this project and introduced me to Mr. Diabaté, a musician and griot. Durand describes the griot as, quote, hereditary professional musicians of Mande peoples of West Africa, end quote, noting the multifaceted roles they play in their communities as praise singers, dancers, public orators, interpreters, historians, genealogists, mediators, and political advisors. The key collaborators in our Sunjata project were Hawa Diabaté, singing, Lassana Diabaté, balafón, and Sharif Keita, a literature scholar and translator. The island's UNIA, which has the mandate to promote the heritage of African Nova Scotians, was a project partner. It hosted a workshop and networking event where community members shared memories, music, and stories of migration with Hawa, Lassana, and Sharif. These experts worked with Lucy Duran to create, perform, and record an original rendition of the epic, which conveys the tale of the eponymous hero Sunjata Keita, who founded the Kingdom of Mali in the 13th century. As Sharif Keita describes in more detail in his forthcoming special issue contribution, Sunjata is, quote, one whose nostalgia and proud memory still give the Mande people a sense of cohesion which resists dispersion and decline. Legend depicts Sunjata as a man who surmounted incredible odds and physical handicaps in his childhood to become the unifier of the Mande against the oppressive rule of Sumanguru Kante, king of Soso, end quote. Our Sunjata Story performance in Cape Breton brought together sung storytelling and balafón playing, two leading exponents of major Southern griot traditions, Southern Mali griot traditions. It integrated performances in the original Bambara language with poetic, performative English translations created by Mali-born scholar of African literatures, Sharif Keita. Hawa Diabaté sang the story with the recognized authority and knowledge accorded her by her lineage. Lassana Diabaté accompanied her on the balafón with his great skill and a comprehensive knowledge of Sunjata and other epics. Sharif Keita, originally of Mali, has a profound understanding of oral literature and griot culture, which made him an excellent translator of Bambara. Duran's background and experience ensured her success as a project producer. An expert on African music in general and the Sunjata Story specifically, Duran has produced several CDs and films throughout her career. She has over 13 years of BBC programming experience and a resume that includes the development of award-winning digital and object-based educational materials, including DVDs, books, and web-based materials. Additionally, a team of project assistants created digital educational materials based on the new performance of the Sunjata Story. Collaborating intensively with various offices at my university, with local cultural groups, the public library, and funders in several government offices, I facilitated the funding, management, and production of our Sunjata Story as part of the aforementioned Singing Storytellers Symposium. Also, I take a lead in publication and production, which involves collaborative authoring in many cases. Now I invite you to watch and listen to the short documentary film of our Sunjata Story production. So I'm going to come out of my screen share and invite Marion to share the film.
Bismillah. Barakalata, 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 barakalata.
He took his bow and arrow, the brave son of Sogolon, and conquered the savannah. He took his bow and arrow, the master hunter, son of Sogolon, the buffalo woman who gave birth to the Lion King of Mande. Awa temananya.
Subawa mande kalu subala nebe jata makurugan fuwa dabalu faraba jata kona tembi welela sigite na komi ba mande tokoma le yobana o simu angata.
This is the Sunjata Fasa, the epic of the Mande people. It is a story of the great adversity that befell the people of old Mali. This is how they survived an oppressive power 7 centuries ago. Awa, Tanay.
Subawoy nikera tuma mina mande ndugu folo ye kiriye mande ndugu folo ye kiri koro nindi kiri koro jontama ni fusantamba mande fenkuna ndamu kawusa mande fendi mandamundi alu ya fala wolu bolo fara makobala ni erebede simon.
Sumaoro, the sorcerer king, entered the land of Mande. He unleashed terror on his people. The day he entered Mande, he was wearing a hat made of human skin. The day he invaded Mande, he was wearing a robe of human skin. Shoes made with human skin. Oh, what a frightful sight. The people of Mande gathered at Kiri, their oldest village, to lament their plight. Awa, temenanye.
Okera tuma mina simo mande masake folo ye jonye de mande masake folo sumawro kate sogo simo ni simo salaba amane barala de sumawro de kera mande masake folo ye kiri koroni. Sunjata mawuli, Sunjata bebi kukoloma mawuli falong.
The epic of Sunjata is a story of rivalry, of ferocious rivalry, between the two wives of King Naremagan of Old Mali. Sasuma Berete, the first queen, was beautiful but mean-spirited. Sogolon II was an ugly hunchback with a kind and generous heart. Polygamy breeds competition, not only between the wives of one man, but also among the children they bring into this world. Awa, temenanya.
Lomina sumaworo ni mogokoro samarale dona mande sumaworo dona mande lomina o sumaworo ni mogokoro blokile dona mande sumaworo dona mande lomina o sumaworo ni mogokoro fugulale dona mande amane mogolu torola de mane kalu nyanina mane kalu torola sorwa salaba temeni kuma ye doni doni doni.
Who would be king? Who would inherit Naremagan's throne? Sasuma's son, Dankarantuma, or Sogolon's son, Sunjata? Who would become the great savior the soothsayers predicted? It is said that a big tree grows out of a small seed. But patience is hard for human mortals. Sunjata's destiny was a threat to his half-brother, and Sasuma, the first wife, cast a spell on him. 7 years after his birth, Sunjata still could not walk. He became the object of much ridicule. Jelmuso, Temanai.
Manejeli musolu ye donkili mila. Aebo musolu aebo Sunjata tamana suba musoni nyagwa musolu aebo sugulunjata tamana.
Today I will walk, Jata said, to fetch sweet baobab leaves for you, my dear mother. As he tore himself from the ground, stood on his feet, and took his first step, Sogolon broke into song. Come out, men and women of Monday. Come out, witches and sorcerers. Your spell is finally broken. Sunjata is marching forward. Sunjata, the master hunter, king of the savannah, is called Simbo. Sunjata told his mother, gather your belongings. Let's leave the land of Monday for a while. Exile is hard, but it brings out your good character. Let's go to Mema in the north. Awa. Temenai.
Okera toma mina o Sunjata wulila. Ana wolo banyoma netara Mema dugu kono. Aluwara nyani mabori la Mema. Sunjata segina anana mande. Sunjata dona mane. Sorwa manekalu kontana manekalu sewara. Aye mogolu fara ɲɔgɔn kan balana kono ka mogolu fara ɲɔgɔn kan kiri koroni masa fɛn fɛn tun bɛ mande a bɛɛ kɛra masa di a bɛɛ kɛra masa le di ye kamaralu bɛ ma ɲani masa kara o ye kala gosamɔkɛ ye dakajala fakoli kumani fakoli daba oye kala gosimo ke ye dakajala damasa wolani tamatura maga kusuru ni kasine de kasine sa selen fabure danga fabure magada fimani magadaje oye kala gosimo ke ye dakajala dota lebidi dota sinindi.
The hero is not loved except on troubled days, the proverb goes. The Monday was suffering in the hands of Sumaoro, the sorcerer king. They said, who will save us today? Let's go find Sunjata, the son of Sogolon. He has become a brave warrior, we heard. His time has come. His half-brother, Dankarantuma, drove him away yesterday. But today, we need him to free his fatherland. Awa, mandem masau barala.
simu salabaja kumalu wara la simu. Dabalu farabaja da konate. Kumalu chibaja da konate mbiwelela. Sigita na kumimba mande togomale yobanade. Mane kalu sigira narena. Sunjata sigirale kita kuruni burofo. Kaya kuruni kaya ba. Simon, lawali Simon, angana tulunge jata la nyawo nyama.
Sunjata came back to unite his people against tyranny, who joined his noble cause. Commander of CB, prince of the Kamara clan. Fakoli Koroma, who defected from his uncle, the sorcerer king, to fight for justice. Thus, Mande was freed from oppression. Laughter and happiness came back to his people. Sunjata the Lion King, King of Kings, was my ancestor. He was called Keita, which means take your heritage, make it greater before you pass it on to posterity. Sunjata became an emperor 7 centuries ago. His memory rests with the griot or jali that you see here with me. Death will eat your flesh, swallow your bones, but it has no power over what we call Togo, your good fame that will live forever in stories and songs. Sunjata was so concerned about his own immortality that when he felt that his days were ending, he took his griot on his back and toured the length of his empire. He told his people to take good care of the griots so that they can perpetuate his memory, their memory.
Nyama 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 fembe ido la nyama le koro nyama tido kula fenkoro fembe ido na nyama le koro nyama tido kula fenkoro jonye ko bala maga
Koba,
jataye ko bala maga
Koba,
Janye jolofina maga
Jolofe,
Jataye jolofina maga jolofi Fenfaya dukuba sigidiyala Tolomba ya tolomba Tamana baila tambe yelefe Tolomba ya tolomba Dolubaye kundingolo kundingkanja Jatabaye sanune olo sanunya ule Dolubaye kundingolo kundingkanja Jatabaye sanune olo sanunya ule Barakalata Barakalata
Plus.
Barakalata. Barakalata. Barakalata.
Barakalata. Barakalata.
Barakalata. Barakalata. Barakalata. Ah, barakalata. Sokolomba. Barakalata. Kiyala. Ah, barakalata. Totigi jontigi. Barakalata. Mande. Ayabo musolu ayabo sunjata tamban suba musolu nyagwa musolu ayabo sunjata tamban. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think I'm going to share my screen again now. I'll give a little more of a presentation about the legacies of this project and the continuing collaborations. And then it will be time to share a new performance. But I just want to reflect that we're giving Lassana and his musician companions a big hand for that extraordinary, that exquisite performance. And while I'm coming back here to share my screen, I'm also going to acknowledge that I saw Lucy Duran in the audience, if I can say that, on the Zoom. So pleased that she could join us as well. And just to acknowledge, I think someone's mic might be open, so we'll want to make sure that we mute the mics. I acknowledge also that the photos that you saw in the backdrop on that film were photos that Lucy collected during her many years of field research. So they provided the backdrop for that performance as well. So our Sunjata project's objectives were several: to honor local communities and groups with African origins, to share new and different musics in the context of Singing Storytellers, the wider project, to raise awareness about what we share across different music cultures, such as epic and storytelling traditions, to highlight and celebrate our differences, to facilitate intercultural music collaborations involving more familiar Cape Breton musics and other bardic musics from around the world and through academic discourse as well, and to promote public engagement through intercultural learning opportunities for students, teachers, and the general public. The original production of this Monday epic was presented on October 9th, 2014 at the Boardmore Theatre at Cape Breton University. As part of the Singing Storytellers Symposium, it was just ahead of the Celtic Colours International Festival. In the days before the symposium, amidst rehearsals, Hawa, Lassana, and Sharif also performed excerpts of the Sunjata story in local schools in Cape Breton. Children in local schools were taught to sing choruses and play small parts on marimbas at workshops, because our collaborative team felt that education was a vital component to ensure widespread and long-term impact for the work. This served at least two purposes. It helped us to engage with local communities by sharing Malian music with local children, who then reported this to their parents, and some came to performances later on and told us about the wonderful experiences of their children. It also served as a means of providing the musicians with financial benefit. With respect to our Sunjata production, two community partners were particularly vital. The first was UNIA in Glace Bay, as I mentioned. On our behalf, they submitted a grant application to the province's African Affairs Office. These funds allowed the UNIA to host the event with the artists, the workshop, and the social at their center. The cost of the flights and accommodations for the Sunjata group would far exceed that grant, however. Thankfully, Celtic Colours International Festival was interested in partnering with our project, so they matched grant funding that had been awarded and then helped our Sunjata project, help make it possible. Hawa and Lassana were also featured as part of the Celtic Colours Bards of the World concert, jointly sponsored then with the music festival and our project. Our project collaborators benefited from expanded networks and connections. For example, as a result of Singing Storytellers, Celtic Colours and our local CBC office benefited from an influx of performers and presenters who would not normally have been available to them. The local, national, and international networks of various faculty partners have resulted in new global audiences for Celtic Colours and more diverse local audiences and networks as well. For instance, the international scholars who visited Cape Breton to participate in the symposium raved about our local events, including Celtic Colours, CBC Cape Breton, our regional office of Canada's national broadcaster, that interviewed the Sunjata artists and gathered their newly recorded material, which was aired at the time of the symposium and also then recut for use in later programs. Moreover, Hawa and Lassana garnered the attention of local and international audiences. The enormous interest in their music, for example, the colleagues who were speaking earlier today used this film in their teaching. This has resulted in an increased base for both parties, including the academics and artists who traveled to Cape Breton to take part in a symposium. Lucy Duran, upon her return to London after Singing Storytellers in 2014, shared news of it to her colleagues in London. Among them was Janet Topfarjan, a curator at the British Library, who was in the midst of preparing an exhibit on West Africa. Janet was struck by the story of our Sunjata project, and after viewing some of the footage we recorded, requested that a short film be made for the exhibit she was curating, titled West Africa Word Symbol Song. Our short film was then the first item that visitors encountered in the exhibit. And the 20-minute performance documentary that you just watched was given its world premiere at the British Library in December of 2015 as part of a public outreach program associated with this exhibit. And my participation in the premiere also included an opportunity for me to be interviewed and share knowledge about Cape Breton's African Nova Scotian communities on British radio. Singing Storytellers demonstrated some of the ways in which scholars and communities can work together with various levels of government and on new initiatives to draw attention to the rich contributions of diverse groups of the region. Unique training opportunities for and the mentorship of graduate students as emerging scholars were afforded to people like Eli Lionbloom, hired to help us create the film. In the process, he also benefited from mentorship of several prominent international scholars, including Lucy Duran and Janet Topfarjan at the British Library. The collaboration and learning that was modeled through Singing Storytellers in general and our Sunjata Story project specifically is of considerable value for musicians and educators, as we're hearing. Both Lucy Duran and Lassana Diabaté have noted the existence of the film on the Center for Sound Community's YouTube channel means that it can be accessed anywhere in the world that internet connectivity permits. It's allowed musicians to direct individuals and organizations who might be considering hiring them to review the performances in the film. Twitter communications also illustrate the usefulness of our Sunjata production to educators, as this professor at the University of West Virginia shared in a note. She also remarked upon the usefulness of the Sunjata Story synopsis that we provided on our Singing Storytellers website. So the initial collaboration in 2014 led to other cultural and heritage partnerships with a much greater diversity of communities than originally had been the case. For example, Lassana returned to Cape Breton in February 2017 to lead African Heritage Month celebrations, facilitate workshops, and to participate in further research. Here, he's pictured at a recent, Here he's pictured at a Francophone community center in Cape Breton. And on his most recent trip in 2019, he spent time in workshops with Mi'kmaq youth in MEMBERTOU First Nation, making music while discussing decolonization and racism and what it means to be an Indigenous person in Canada and in Mali. As well, he delivered a presentation in Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's Nova Scotia's city on the mainland, the capital city. And there we met and began to work with renowned beat poet and African Canadian historian, Dr. Afua Cooper. Our team is also very proud to share that in September of 2020, I was contacted by the Chicago Public School Board for permission to use the Sunjata film in their new learning resources. A link to our film will be provided to teachers as part of a curriculum equity initiative, grades 6 to 12, for Chicago public school teachers to download and use in their instructional practice as they explore the question, how do we find the truth? And during Lassana's most recent visit to Cape Breton in 2019, he recorded his first solo CD, which may also be the world's first balafón-only full-length album. The CD was printed exactly a month before the coronavirus changed life for everyone around the world. Musicians like Lassana, who would otherwise be touring a new album, were suddenly grounded and unable to do their music-making work. Responding to a call from Canada's Federal Research Funding Agency, we applied for and were awarded a small grant to address COVID-related challenges. Our project has a goal now in two parts: to work with Lassana to create a new model and resources for music education in the time of COVID-19, focusing on Black and Indigenous lives in music, the communities that are hardest hit by the pandemic. To these ends, a virtual CD release concert was held in March of this year, a creative intervention, a mechanism of engaging communities through music. This CD release has been managed by a team of dedicated postdoctoral researchers and graduate students, including Eric Escudero, our project manager, who's here with us today. Together with several others, Eric has planned and promoted a successful CD launch, including a promotional campaign and the development of a content-rich website. Currently, this team, with Lassana at the helm, is consulting with boys and girls clubs, schools, and Indigenous youth programs as they create compelling digital resources to support engaging and culturally sensitive educational programming in our COVID-impacted world. In this, we benefit from the expert consultation of leading global music education researcher, Dr. Haux Hippers, and Smithsonian Folkways recording staff, who are experts in global music education curriculum and resource development. The second part of our research project, which we will focus on in earnest this summer, is to establish a new operating model for Foli La Kana, the non-for-profit association that Lassana established to support music and youth in Mali. Oops, I'm sorry about that. The success of our project's cross-sector relationships underscores the importance of sharing of how we work toward recognizing and developing mutual interests, benefiting from collaborative learning, and jointly creating new knowledge and insight. We are also committed to providing meaningful research training experiences for students and postdocs of underrepresented groups. It's only through our intensive engagement with one another in ways in which we value the knowledge, skills, and experiences that we each bring to our collective that our collaborations are possible. Not simply presentations or concerts or recordings, our research and outcomes are collaboratively designed, carried out, and created. Through these mutually supportive, critical, and creative processes with different groups, our team and community members, Nova Scotians of African ancestry, Malians, Mi'kmaq, and many, many others learn about, learn with one another. And the relationships that developed in the original project are continuing to bear out new relationships, new learning opportunities, new research, and new outcomes. The enthusiastic positive and deeply felt response our Sunjata Story project elicited from participating African Nova Scotians in Cape Breton is important beyond words. The collective strength and solidarity among diverse participants in the sharing of ancestors' stories, drumming, songs, and food was palpable. Ethnomusicologist Gabriel Solis and others have drawn attention to the ways in which, quote, music has been critical to the alliances and affiliations that have connected Black identified artists and activists since as late as the end of the 19th century, end quote. To this day, many who attended the event at the UNIA in Glace Bay in 2014 still joyfully remember that celebratory evening of music and socializing and sharing. Indeed, it is our aim, working in collaboration and at the direction of community partners, to draw attention to the many different experiences and histories of people of African ancestry in Cape Breton. This is not to elide the tremendous differences between all who came together that evening. In the case of African Nova Scotians who came to the UNIA to share songs and stories with our Malian guests, the event was an instance of, quote, an affirmative politics of affinity between Black people, end quote. Facilitated in projects such as the Sunjata Story and continued in collaborations with Lassana through today. Simultaneously, we are learning how to listen to one another, to discover how to engage in productive dialogue, musical or otherwise. We are learning about what we share, storytelling and drumming practices, histories of oppression and of overcoming struggle, for instance. Moreover, all of our participants care for, empathize with, and support one another. And finally, our collective activity generates a greater awareness of histories, as well as the activities and other contributions of African Nova Scotians and people of African descent to contemporary communities. Creative expression through research creation, performance, visual art, and multimedia can enhance both people's ability to express themselves and researchers' capacity to interpret and make sense of not only their own experiences, but also the experiences of their interlocutors. Practice-based research relies on the arts to better understand people's experiences in ways that are accessible to broad audiences. This research method strives to bridge gaps between academia and communities. Ethnomusicologists, many of whom have been or are practicing musicians and performers and artists who work in multiple modalities, may be uniquely situated to move this kind of work forward, particularly in situations where music and creative activities are integral to the process, not merely objects to be studied or showcased in performance. By carrying out such creative, critical, community-engaged research, what comes sharply into focus is the idea that how we engage in research is at least as important as what we learn by carrying out the research. Music demonstrates our capacities to create and express identities, experiences, and inner emotional lives in times of conflict and cooperation. Even today, through the difficult times of the pandemic, we have all come together for music. Intercultural performance, in particular, offers a significant means for international and intranational communication. And there I quote Bernard and McKinley. Intercultural performance demonstrates crucial differences between people, practices, and cultures. With reference to the work of ethnomusicologists, Small and Waterman, for instance, music affects co-presence and shapes social relations by helping us to hear others and to hear others and hear ourselves rather in others' voices. I'd like to repeat that. It's a really powerful sentence. Music affects co-presence and shapes social relations by helping us to hear others and to hear ourselves in others' voices. Cape Bretoners' collaborations with Lassana Diabaté provide participants of different backgrounds with opportunities to listen together with musicians from across the Atlantic, sharing virtuosity, ideas of beauty, and traditional values through sound and performance. These opportunities have deepened our community members' appreciation for one another and helped us to understand different worldviews while providing significant tangible benefits also for Lassana as an artist researcher. The collaborations between Lassana, the Centre for Sound Communities teams, and wider Nova Scotia communities are a prime example of how music research can contribute to economic, cultural, social, technological, and intellectual well-being of its participants, as well as how it can engage stakeholder communities and lead to benefits for diverse groups. The Sunjata Story legacy also highlights how Canadian research can engage and impact global citizens and broad international communities, providing an example of how community-based research participants can be involved in and valued as co-researchers on their own terms. And now I'm going to try to stop sharing the screen here and ask Lassana if he might have a few words, if he can hear, or if I should introduce briefly the concert. I'm not seeing Lassana at this moment.
It looks like he might have dropped out of the call briefly.
Okay, sometimes there are internet connectivity problems, and I know there was a bit of that earlier today. So it's a pre-recorded concert, although specially pre-recorded for this event today. So at this point, I think I'd just like to draw attention to the fact that that in this concert, rather, you'll hear Lassana on the balafón. You saw him earlier in that film. Lassana is joined in today's concert by Mamadou Kouyaté on the bass and ngoni, Nabi Doumbia on the talking drums, and Bayi Kouyaté on lead ngoni. This performance video was edited and produced by our colleague, Dr. Michael McDonald, an award-winning filmmaker at MacEwan University in Edmonton, Alberta. We're very grateful to Michael for his collaboration. He's now made several films with the Centre for Sound Communities as a research partner who is devoted to artists and communities like Lassana Diabaté. Marion, may I kindly ask if you would share the new performance? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks so much to Lassana and to the musicians, and an extra special thanks also to Lucy for giving us all of that extra rich information in the commentary. Beautiful, exquisite music, Lassana. Thank you so much. And thanks very much to our hosts.
Thank
think
you,
wanted to say a word. Yes, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Lassana. Just beautiful. And I just want to say that in addition to thanking our program in African Studies and Ethnomusicology in the School of Music, to also thank you, Marcia, for just the outstanding work that your center has done. I am stunned at the practice-based research, the public engagement, the community engagement is, I think, a model for all of us doing research in whatever area, music, anything else, just an outstanding model that should be used as a template. So thank you for bringing this to us today. And I don't know if Shannon or Danny want to say anything, but otherwise we're ready to close. Anyone have anything else they want to jump in and just shout out?
I just want to say that the music was gorgeous. Thank you so much, Lassana, and thank you, Marcia, for putting this together and for your role in facilitating this project. And I wanted to just say one thing that struck me in what you were talking about, Marcia, about the whole project, which was his Lassana's work with the Mi'kmaq people, and the importance of creating that space in which people from Mali can talk to Indigenous people in Canada, and creating these horizontal relationships, not just bringing great musicians to the university, not just sharing them with other people at festivals, but building those spaces in which people can communicate across cultural boundaries. And music is such an important way to build relationships, and it just struck me as really beautiful, that moment of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone, and we will see you next time. Merci beaucoup.